Hello, and welcome to Cahnmann's Current Events Roundtable. Today we have two guests, and I was very happy to bring them on the show today because we're going to be talking about affordable housing, what affordable housing is and what affordable housing isn't. I mean, a lot of times we hear about what's going on. When we think of affordable housing, we think of Cabrini Green, and this is not Cabrini Green. This is far from Cabrini Green, and we're going to show you a few pictures in a little while. But I want to tell you a little bit about my guests. First of all, what is affordable housing? The Community Partners for Affordable Housing is a nonprofit organization that creates public-private partnerships to preserve, maintain, and develop permanently affordable for sale and rental housing for low and moderately income households. And today our guests are Robert Anthony, who is the Executive Director of Community Partners for Affordable Housing. Welcome,
Thank you
Rob.
for having me.
And Amy Cahnmann, who is Director of Community Relations for Affordable Housing. And I want to welcome you, Amy.
Nice to be here.
And I'm so glad that you two could make it, because the last two times we were going to record this show, believe it or not, we had terrible snowstorms. So I finally got these two wonderful people together so we can talk a little bit about what is and what is not affordable housing. And I know that at the end of this week, by the way, which is my anniversary, which is June 25th, you're going to have it's going to be your anniversry, correct?
Yes.
And it's the 10th anniversary on my anniversary, which is my 31st anniversary, but your 10th anniversary, that's going to be in Highland Park, and it's going to be, I guess, at Vibes, and unfortunately, too bad it couldn't get on and have all these wonderful people join us, but we do have our community leaders are going to be there, our Highland Park City Council, our homeowners, and we're very proud, and I'm very proud to be there as well. So I'm going to start with you, Rob. What is affordable housing, and what is this all about? Can you tell our listeners, our viewers, something about it?
So, Highland Park has really embraced the values of diversity and inclusiveness, and wanting to provide a range of housing options for people at various income levels and various life circumstances. And so what Community Partners for Affordable Housing is about is not making every house in Highland Park affordable, but instead what we really try to do is to provide a range of housing options. So people who may be experiencing loss of a spouse or a divorce, or seniors who want to stay in the community, or children who grew up in the community want to come back to the community to be able to live here in the community where they grew up, providing opportunities for those kinds of people to be able to afford to stay in the community.
That's very nice. And I'll tell you a personal story, but I'm going to ask Amy first. What is difference about, if you can tell us a little bit about difference between the affordable housing, and we talk about Section 8. What is Section 8? You could also, Rob, you can chime in too. The difference between the two.
I'm going to actually let Rob handle that one.
Okay,
so what Section 8 really is a funding mechanism to help fund affordable housing. And so there are project-based Section 8 buildings where the whole building is affordable with a federal subsidy that comes through the Department of Housing and Urban Development. The Department of Housing and Urban Development also has vouchers that they administer through their Section 8 program, and there's a long waiting list for those vouchers, but if they get those, they can go rent anywhere on the open market and use those vouchers, and a subsidy comes along with that to make it affordable.
So it's completely different than what what we're talking about today is what you guys do, and how, it isn't, do they have a long period of waiting? You could also talk about that, Amy. Is there a long waiting list for people?
For us?
Yes.
Well, you are right. We are not Section 8. We are completely different from Section 8. So what we do is two things. We either develop our own properties, like we did with Hyacinth Place.
Oh, Hyacinth Place, yeah, go ahead. I want to show you, this is the most, when I saw this, I said, why am I not living here? This is so much nicer than what I live in, and this is absolutely beautiful. Can we show Hyacinth Place? That is the townhomes yes.
So we developed that property, and in part with many other partners. And so that is an example. There's 10 units there that are owned, and there's 4 rental units there.
And I understand there's 3 bedrooms upstairs and 2 bathrooms.
2.5 bathrooms.
2 bathrooms upstairs.
2 bathrooms upstairs, right?
The middle floor is the kitchen and the family room,
right,
with another bathroom, and
right,
then the very first floor is a living room.
Right.
And when I saw this, you know, there was a member in our family that had a very unfortunate situation. She was left with 3 children, and her husband passed away in his late 40s, and she was left practically out of her home where she lived before because she could not afford to, after he passed away, suddenly, she was not able to live there. And I saw this one day. I was in the neighborhood, and I saw Hyacinth Place, and it said, a big sign saying affordable housing, and I made my husband come back, and I said, I can't believe, the sign must be in the wrong place. There must be affordable housing somewhere else, and they put it in front of these beautiful buildings, and sure enough, he said no, and we called up, and the story ended beautifully because my family member, she was able to get into this, not into that place, but I'll show you another, in one of the other homes that you have.
Right.
And tell us a little bit how, and I'll show you, not her particular house, but I'll show you one of the other houses that people can live in. And I was just shocked, and it made such a difference in her life. Her children go to the Highland Park school systems, you know, possibly, and she was able to send her children. Their whole life has changed because of this.
Yeah, that's a story that we hear a lot. We could tell you there are many, many circumstances under which people come to us. Sometimes it's a job loss, sometimes it's just low income people who work in the community, sometimes there's been a death of a family member, which is a story that we hear way too often, and divorces. That's another situation where a family is going from 2 incomes to 1, and affordable housing gives them a way to stay in the community. It gives them a way not to disrupt their family, or it gives them a way to live near where they work, which is much less disruptive to their family than it would otherwise be. So what you are referring to is what we call our scattered site homes. So in addition to developing our own properties like the ones at Hyacinth Place, we go out and we buy homes on the open market, and sometimes they're blighted and foreclosed, which we actually like and embrace.
I want to show you that. I want to show you one that was blighted. This is a picture of a blighted home. You see the landscaping, I don't know.
This house, you literally could not walk in the front door when we purchased it. It was so overgrown. And it was full of there was water in the basement and holes, and
couldn't get in the garage either because the door was broken.
Yeah, right. And so literally the weekend after we purchased this, we had a group of about 40 volunteers go in, including a lot of neighbors, and worked on this house. And when we acquire properties like this, we use a combination of volunteers and professional contractors.
Okay, I want to talk about, let's see what this is the blighted house.
That's before.
And this is after.
Right.
Isn't that beautiful?
And most of that landscaping that you see, the vines coming off the house, the little tree that's planted in the front, that was all done on a service day.
Okay, we'll show the service day with all the children. The next picture, I just want to show that, our last picture. There they are. This is the service day. Tell about the service day. And we talked about it a little earlier. It's kind of like the Habitat for Humanity, or you said Extreme Makeover, Highland Park Edition.
Right.
But these are young people that come in from these are freshman?
Well, this group was from the Highland Park High School freshman board last year.
Okay.
But our service days are for, sometimes they're for the general community, and we open it up to anybody. Sometimes it's a corporate group that wants to come in. The Highland Park High School approached us, and they wanted to come in, so this group happens to be Highland Park, but it's not only for high school students.
And what are these kids, these young people, what do? They help out with the landscaping?
They did,
what else do they do?
that day, they did landscaping, they took down walls, they built a fence. What else did they do?
Interior demolition is what
Demolition.
volunteers love to do. Sometimes we have painting days, sometimes we
They do like
tear
demolition.
up carpet and things like that, but demolition, taking down a wall is what people love
Especially
to
if you're a
do.
15-year-old boy,
Yeah,
you think
right,
that's
right.
pretty great.
Yeah, well, thank you for the pictures. Thank you. We'll get back on.
So that house is quite beautiful now and has undergone a transformation. That is also an example of a house that would have been torn down.
Okay.
And there are many houses that would have been torn down, but we come in, we buy them, and rather than have it torn down and become something completely unaffordable for somebody who lives or works in the community, we keep it, we fix it up, and we bring in a household that would probably not otherwise be able to be in that kind of living situation.
How do these people, I mean, first of all, how do they get mortgages for this? How do you get your carpenters? How do you get all these people? This is really fascinating because I mean, when you hear of affordable housing, and one of the things that I understand, what happens is you get one of those blighted houses in your neighborhood, and I'm sure everybody in their has a neighborhood that has a house that nobody takes care of. Every neighborhood has one of those type of homes. And then you go in and you fix it up, and no one could tell if this is a person that's, that had to use affordable housing. It just blends in with the rest of the neighborhood, which is absolutely amazing. And so tell us a little bit about, either one of you could chime in on how these people, how could they afford, with the mortgage, with the banks these days that are not giving out mortgages, how do you work with these people? How do they get all of these? What happens?
The reason our name is Community Partners for Affordable Housing is because it takes a lot of community partners to make this all work. And so we have tremendous support from the City of Highland Park, from the Housing Commission, from local banks, contractors, a lot of volunteer work from First Bank of Highland Park, Lake Forest Bank and Trust. The paint jar sends people in to paint for us. We have contractors that donate materials and supplies. And so it takes a lot of these volunteer days with different businesses and churches and synagogues and the high school, and it takes everyone coming together to make this work. And in terms of the mortgages, we have relationships with some lenders who have agreed to provide mortgages for these properties. So again, some of our units are rental units, other are for sale. And when they're for sale at affordable prices that low-income households can afford. So usually the purchase price is in the $160,000 to $175,000 range. And so the monthly payment for principal, interest, taxes, and insurance is about $1,000 to $1,200 per month. And with lenders that we work with, people have to qualify for the program. They need to make enough income and be able to support the monthly payments, but they can't make too much income, otherwise they don't qualify for the program. So
you have to make enough to qualify, but not too much.
Right, exactly.
That's hard.
Exactly. So you need to fall into this window.
Yeah.
And the maximum income limits for most of the houses are 80% of the median income, which is about $48,000 for a two-person household or $60,000 for a four-person household.
Our homeowners are teachers, teachers' aides, nurses, school staff, retail employees, medical assistants. We have all kinds of, we pretty much run the gamut. Child care workers. We have a lot of, we represent a broad spectrum. But they're, they're hardworking people who either could not afford to live in Highland Park without affordable housing, or who have always lived here and had some sort of event that made it very difficult for them to stay. Sometimes it's just aging. Sometimes it's just being a senior. We do have seniors in some of our units, and it's difficult to come to a point in your life where you think you have to move out of the community that you've lived in and raised your family in, and affordable housing gives them a way to stay in the community with very certain expenses.
And I understand that you just had some, you have some houses now also in Lake Forest.
We do.
And how do you, when we say Lake Forest, everybody thinks, oh my goodness, Lake Forest. How do you get these houses? How do you negotiate for them? That's what I like to know.
Rob will answer that, but we're patient and we wait for the right opportunity because the economics have to work. So we have to, our acquisition cost has to work into the economic model in order to make it work. But Rob can speak to it more than I can. We're very patient, and Rob watches the listings very carefully, and we have people who are on our board who are watching very carefully, and then when we see something, we move on it.
And in addition to the listings, we have relationship with lenders, and so if there's a foreclosure, they might give us a call and let us know. We also, we've had homes donated in the past. We are always open to discussing if someone has a home that they think would make a good affordable home. We're interested in talking with them about possibly purchasing their home, and there are also some tax benefits to either donating or selling their home to us for affordable housing.
Now, how does it work when the house is now in a land trust? Is that what it is? Talk a little bit, what is a land trust? And when they have to, say they decide to move somewhere else, maybe they move to another state, or they just have to sell their house, how does that work again?
Sure.
So talk about the land trust.
Okay.
And
So the land trust model is a really exciting model of affordable housing, and what it does is when we purchase a home, we rehab it, we incorporate a lot of environmentally friendly components into the rehab, and then we sell the home only to the low to moderate income household. And the nonprofit or the land trust retains ownership of the underlying land. And that land is leased to the home buyer through a 99-year renewable ground lease, so they never have to worry about losing control of that land. And what it essentially does is it takes the land value out of the equation. And so instead of a $300,000 house with a $2,200 a month mortgage payment, it becomes a $160,000 house with a $1,100 payment. So it makes it affordable to people. And the beauty of the land trust model is that when they want to sell the home, they sell it to someone on our waiting list, or they sell it back to the nonprofit. And there's a resale formula that's used to dictate the resale formula price, or what they would sell it for. And that formula is designed to let them build equity. So just like you would with any other home, you pay off the principal and you build equity. And you can also get a portion of the appreciation, but the appreciation is capped so that it stays affordable for the next buyer, and then the next buyer, and the next buyer. And so there's a one-time subsidy that goes into the house, and it builds this permanent stock of housing that'll stay affordable to address the community's housing needs forever.
this is an amazing, I'm wondering why other cities, do you know of any other cities that are following suit, or any other towns? I mean, this is a wonderful way to, to keep houses so they don't, they don't blight the neighborhood, and yet be affordable for people that can't afford it. And I mean, this is, because you hear so much of, people losing their houses now with the mortgages, and you have to go back to renting, and and their houses are closing, and this is a great way to solve a problem. I wonder why this has it been done before? Where did you get the model?
Yes,
or what,
it's
how did
been
this
done. There are many land trusts across the country. There's even a conference of national land trusts.
Okay.
So I don't know, how many do you think there are in the whole country?
About 400, I think.
Okay.
Right now.
So Highland Park did have quite a bit of input from a consultant who works with one of, I think, probably the largest land trust in the country, which is in Burlington, Vermont. It's now called the Champlain Land Trust. It used to be called the Burlington Land Trust. And they have more units than anybody else, and they really know what they're doing, and they were exceptionally helpful when Highland Park started to take baby steps to developing their affordable housing plan. And that consultant was very, very, very instrumental in helping the founding people create the land trust. Betsy Lazar was the consultant, the local consultant, and he was the national consultant, and then there was a whole task force put together which created the land trust.
We were actually the first community land trust in Illinois.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, because I don't know of any other are there any that have come into Illinois since then, or?
There was one in Evanston, and they had some staffing and capacity issues, and so their board asked us to come in and absorb their one unit that they had done and put it into our inventory and start doing some work in Evanston. So we're in that process now. And then in Chicago, they have what they call a Chicago Community Land Trust, and it operates a little bit differently than ours does, but essentially it's a similar affordable housing program.
Now, do you ever have problems with any of the neighbors in the neighborhood saying, "Oh my goodness, I don't want anybody that's in my neighborhood that," and how do you handle it?
Originally when we first got started 10 years ago, I think we ran into some of that because people weren't sure what affordable housing was, who's going to live there, what does it look like, what does this all mean?
Because you think of Cabrini Green, remember?
Right, there are a lot of
everybody thinks, "Oh my
negative-
God, I don't want a Cabrini Green in my
Yeah,
neighborhood."
there are a lot of negative perceptions and misunderstandings about what affordable housing is. And since we've developed a track record now of 44 homes, people have gotten to know us a little bit better. They've seen the homes that we've done. They've seen the families that have moved in. Neighbors have seen what we've done for their block. And I think that perception is changing. It takes time. And I think once people actually see what the house looks like and who lives there, those perceptions change. And so now I would say most of the time when we purchase a house, it's usually a foreclosed, blighted property, and the neighbors are thrilled to have us come in and clean this property up. And the people who live in the homes are people who live and work here in the community. We're not bringing in outsiders. That's another perception of affordable housing, and it's really serving the people who are right here in the community already.
How did you get started, Amy, in this affordable housing? And I'll ask the same to you. We have a little bit of time left, and we can ask you this question.
Personally?
Yes.
Well,
And what is your what do you
What is my
actually do?
background?
Your
Okay.
background, and what do you do as a director of community relations? Yes.
Well, I am a lawyer by training. I went to the University of Chicago Law School, where I really was intending to be for my 3 years and then to go back east, which is where I'm from. But I met my husband along the way and wound up relocating
Who happens to
here.
be one of the aldermen of Highland
He's a
Park.
city councilman.
Yes.
And so I basically stayed home and raised our kids and worked part-time in legal jobs. And when my youngest was going off to college and I was trying to reinvent myself as to what sort of the next chapter would be, it happened that Rob was looking for somebody to come and fill some needs at the Land Trust. And we sat down and got together and worked it out. And we now have a really wonderful partnership, I would say. What do I do as opposed to what Rob does? Depends on what day you ask, because it's just two of us. But some of the things that I particularly do is I do most of our media relations. I worked at the Washington Post years and years ago. I had a little stint in journalism before I went to law school, so I'm sort of back to some of that. So I do a lot of our media-related stuff. I do a lot of our homeowner relationship and classes and seminars and outreach with our homeowners.
So you're one of the people that try to find the people that need to be in these homes?
Well, we both do that, but
Yeah.
it does not stop at the house closing. Our relationship with our homeowners really continues quite, I think, very effectively. We offer landscaping seminars, maintenance classes, financial seminars, and we basically stay in touch with them. We are in email contact with everybody quite often, and we as a land trust have a 0% foreclosure rate, and land trusts across the country have a very, very low foreclosure rate, and part of the reason is this communication that is built between the land trust and the homeowners, because theoretically and hopefully, and I think in our case it's actually true, you become aware of difficulties and problems before they get out of control. And if somebody is having difficulty, we want to know about it, we want to help them, we're going to try very hard and as we do, to help them succeed in the situation that they're in. And we also want to help them keep their housing costs down, and that's why we do all of those seminars, and that's why we do those green rehabs. In addition to being environmentally friendly, it helps people keep their utility costs down by as much as 40%. So there's a real relationship that is ongoing, and that sort of falls into my portfolio, although Rob does it too. It really depends on who picks up the phone sometimes.
Interesting. Rob, how did you get started in this affordable housing?
My educational background is in social work and business and community organizing, and I really was interested.
Like the president, huh?
Yeah, right, exactly. I have a master's in community organizing. So, and my interest was really in how to effectively run nonprofits and bring some business skills into nonprofit and nonprofit management. And my real interest originally was homelessness, and I worked on homeless issues and worked for the county coordinating their homeless and affordable housing programs for about 8 years. And the Community Partners for Affordable Housing was one of the organizations that I was very familiar with when I was working at Lake County, and I really thought it had tremendous potential to expand and have a big impact in the region. And so when the prior director left, I made a move to Community Partners for Affordable Housing, and I've been here for about 5 years now.
So you're the man that you go after trying to find houses for people, because I heard you at lunchtime, I heard you talking about different, maybe we can get a house here, maybe we can go to get it,
Right.
So I was a little bit eavesdropping.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting. And so when you get, somebody says that there's a possibility of a house, you go in and take a look at it and decide if it's something that can be used or be lived in.
Right. We actually have an acquisition committee that's comprised of myself, and I look at it from a numbers perspective primarily. And we have a realtor who looks at it from a real estate, a market perspective, and then we have a home inspector who looks at the condition and the types of repairs that would be needed. And so as long as we are all in agreement, the acquisition committee would make a recommendation to our board, who makes a final approval before we purchase something.
Is there a long waiting list for housing?
There are 25 or 30 people on the waiting list, but that does not at all mean there are 25 or 30 people
that are qualified.
Ahead.
That's right.
People sometimes are waiting to improve credit scores, or they qualify for a very low amount, or they have other issues they need to deal with and they're not really ready. And so people that are really ready, willing, and able, I would say most often aren't waiting more than 6 months or so.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's not bad at all. 6 months.
There is a misperception.
Yeah.
If you think that you're well qualified, it can happen quickly.
Because you hear of these others, Section 8, where people have been waiting for
Right,
years
that's a
to get
different
in.
kind of- right.
And people don't realize that this is something that they possibly can get in, and maybe 6 months once they clear up maybe their credit ratings,
Right.
if they have some.
Right.
You would help them, you advise them, and you communicate with these people.
Exactly.
Well, this has been, this has really been a really good show. Our show is already a half an hour, and I'm so glad that you were able to come. It wasn't a snowstorm, no more snowstorms, because I think this is really, really important for the public and their viewers to know that this even exists. I mean, I remember I said I didn't know it exists except for about a year or two, a couple of years ago, and I think there are a lot of people that don't know about this. Is there any way that could tell us, we have like a half a minute left to the show, how people can get in on this? Do you want to tell us
our
about it?
website, we have a lot of great information on our website, and that address is www.cpahousing.org. And our phone number is 847-681-8746.
Well, they can look at if they can't remember the number, at least we have the website for affordable housing and in Highland Park, and they could also call Highland Park.
And there's a link on the city's website.
The city's website, so they can find it through the city. I want to thank you, Rob.
Thank you so
Rob
much.
Anthony, thank you for coming on the show. And Amy Cahnmann, thank you for coming. And I'm so glad that you were able to come in today to